Hello and happy Homebrew Wednesday. I just wanted to do a quick video this week to say Happy New Year. Happy New Year. And do a couple of things. There's not been much brewing related stuff going on. Obviously we've just had the Christmas period, the holidays. I did one batch over the holidays, which was the Paul Wixted Supercharger. And tonight I've just bottled and kegged all of that, so it will be a little bit of time until it gets drunk, for a couple of reasons. And the first is that I'm having, well, not a completely dry, but a dry-ish January and February as well. I've got a couple of work trips coming up, so I'll probably not be completely dry during those work trips, because otherwise I'll be totally miserable. But by and large I'm not going to be drinking very much, so right now I'm on the water. Yummy. And the second reason is that I have decided to try to lose a bit of weight. So the trials and tribulations of a brewer trying to lose weight is pretty difficult, I think, for, well, it's difficult full stop, isn't it? But when you have a habit of drinking your own beer, which you really enjoy regularly, it's not going to make it any easier. So I, for one, have been pretty inspired by Tony Yates in Norway, also Sammy in Canada, and Kevin Clements up in California. Those guys have done a great job of managing to slim down, and they're all pretty prolific brewers. So there's no reason why I can't do it as well. So there's not too much going on then. As I said, I have just bottled and kegged my supercharger, and with that the fermenters are all empty. I've got plenty of ingredients in, and obviously not drinking doesn't mean not brewing, but I do have to kind of take my capacity for storage, I suppose, into account a little bit. Anyway, there is one batch I've got planned, and I'll go through the recipe in just a minute. But I thought it would be a good opportunity to show you a couple, well, one particular tool which I use to control my yeast pitching rate and to, what's the word? To have some sort of control about the quality control, if you like, or at least quantity control, I suppose, over the starters that I produce. So right here I have got a brand new pack of WLP 002. English ale yeast is, as you probably know, and if you don't, well, it is the same strain reputedly as Fuller's used down in London, so a nice English strain. And I'm going to brew a porter with this, obviously a nice London style beer. So what I'd like to do is to show you this tool, but before we go further, White Labs are nicely putting manufactured and best by dates on these brand new packets now. They don't come in the old kind of pop bottle blanks anymore, they're in these new pure pitch sachets, if you like. And you get, with the old ones you just got a best before, but with now you've got a manufactured date as well, which is really useful. So with that, we are going to jump onto the computer, and I'm going to show you about what I'm thinking with this recipe and show you this tool. Okay, so here we are on the computer. So I've already got the recipe done, so I'll just bring that up first of all. So we'll bring up Beersmith. So here we are, but it's a chocolate porter. I'm doing it in a robust porter style, and I did consult with my wife on this recipe, so this is what it is. So it's Marisota, a bit of oats for a bit of smoothness, Munich for some maltiness, Carafa Special 3 for the colour mainly, and a bit of pale chocolate for those kind of roasty chocolate notes. My wife is not a fan of bitter beers in the slightest, so it's pretty malty kind of style, if you like. So I'm using Columbus because I've got loads of it, but I'm only using a little bit. So 14 grams, 60 minutes, give me 24 IBUs. We've got World Flock tablet, we've got English Ale, White Labs WLP 002. So it's a pretty simple recipe. Now, because this is a relatively low ABV beer, I'm thinking I'm not going to really need a huge amount of starter. Normally I would just do a 2 litre starter for my kind of standard size batches and that will be it. This is 25 litres, by the way. But we'll see what we come up with. So I'm going to show you this tool now which I use, and I'm going to take some of the data off this Beersmith recipe to input into some of the fields on there. So we're just going to, oh dear, Chrome is really annoying because it keeps importing my my work bookmarks into my home computer, which is rather frustrating. Anyway, so we're going to do a quick search. Homebrew Dad. In fact, we're going to go Homebrew Dad yeast calculator because that's exactly what I'm looking for. Just check I'm on the right network. So we're going to go to this downloadable one. So the downloadable yeast starter is something as simply a spreadsheet. It runs in Excel. So we're going to download the latest version of that and open it up. There it is, and double click to bring it up in Excel. So here we go. Let's just make that window a bit bigger. So I should probably credit, first of all, the Homebrew Dad website. Homebrew, oh no, not Brew United, just a minute. Let's just make sure we get the website right. Okay, brewunited.com. Is that right? Let's just double check, because I don't want to give you the wrong. I'm sure you could do this anyway, but so yeah, brewunited.com. There you go. This is a really good blog by a guy. I don't know who he is, but I read it on and off, and it's got some really good content on it. Anyway, so I'm brewing this porter for my wife, and I want to make a yeast starter. So I'm using this tool, which is runs on Excel, as I said. So I'm going to walk through these cells on here, and we'll hopefully see how it works. So the input cells are all the green ones. All the other ones are calculated. So you don't need to worry about the other cells. Where the cell's got a little red triangle in the corner, as with every Excel sheet, there are some notes on there, and that gives you a little bit of guidance. So if you know much about yeast pitch rates, you know that 0.75 million cells per milliliter per degrees Plato is the standard pitching rate for an ale, which is what we're going to go with. So if we go back to our Beersmith, you see we've got 25 litres. So we're going to go 25 in that cell, and then obviously litres we can pick from the drop down here. Now, original gravity, we're looking, where are we? Original gravity estimated 1051, so that's what we're going to put in here. 1051, and this is the kind of clever bit here. So overbuild cell count. So what I'm going to do with this packet of yeast that I've got is I'm going to grow it up, but I'm going to make a yeast starter to make 100 billion cells more than I need for this particular beer. And then I'm just going to do a quick back of envelope calculation to see what kind of volume inside the flask represents that 100 billion cells. And when it's fermented out, I'm going to decant that volume into a sanitized jar, and it's going to go back in the fridge, and I'm going to write on it what the yeast variety is and write the date at which it was harvested as well. And that is going to go in the fridge and be kept for next time, and you can keep them for a couple of months easily, no problem. So there we go. We're going to overbuild it by 100 billion cells, which is the same amount of cells as is supposed to be in a White Labs pack. So that's perhaps one of the reasons that we do that. So my initial cell count is 100 billion cells, and the production date is on the packet as I've just shown, and it's October 15th 2015, and I think this is day, month, year, which is interesting for an American form, but anyway, so it's 15th of the 10th 15, and this is going to go away and it's going to calculate viability. So viability of this pack of yeast is estimated at 51%, and that gives us obviously 51 billion cells, billion cells, sorry. So then we're going to move on to here. So the flask size I have is a 2 litre flask. I've got gravity 1037. 1037 is the, as it says in the box there, is the gravity you'll get when you dissolve 100 grams of DME in a litre of water, which is generally the rate that I use. I am using a stir plate, but you can choose manually shaken or just no agitation at all as well. But let's leave it on stir plate. So if I use a starter volume of 2 litres, it's saying I need 202 grams of dry malt extract. It's saying I've got an inoculation rate of 25. The ideal inoculation, for best growth, the ideal inoculation rate is between 25 and 100. So I'm right on the limit there. So I might want to, drop this down to 1.5 or something like that, or maybe even 1 litre to bump up this inoculation rate. Anyway, I'm gonna chance my arm, and I'm gonna go with 25, seeing as I'm just on the cusp of it. That means I'm going to create an extra 283 billion cells, and I'm going to end up with 333 billion cells, approximately. Now, the yeast cells required to overbuild this, overbuild by 100 billion cells, as it says up here, is 337. So I'm only 4 billion cells off. So I'm not going to do a second step. But if I was dealing, for example, with a beer that was a lot stronger, so let's say 1065, something like that, right? Then I'd need quite a lot more cells, and at 333 billion cells I'd need approximately another 70 billion cells to get what I'd require. So you might want to go and do a second step by just decanting some of your original starter into a new batch of wort and spinning that up again on your stir plate and creating some more cells, and then obviously adding those two together before you pitch into the wort. As I said, I don't need that. So I'm going to take that back down to 1051. I'm going to chance my arm and just do a 2 litre starter with 200 grams of dry malt extract for my wort. I'm going to boil that up, chill it down, pitch the yeast, and get it straight onto the stir plate, and I'm going to go away and do that now. Hopefully that's a reasonable overview of this tool here. So credit to the guy behind the Homebrew Dad. I'm just seeing if there's any identification on here, but I can't see any off straight away. So that's how that works. It's a really helpful tool, and I do a new one of these every time I make a starter just to double check that I have enough yeast, and I've never had any problems yet. And by doing this, because you can do this overbuild thing and have a fresh culture in the fridge every time you've done a starter, you can make your single packet of yeast from White Labs or Y yeast last easily 5 generations. I guess if you had excellent sanitary technique, plenty more than that as well. So it's a great money saving method as well to do this. So I'm going to go away and do this starter now, and when we're back when we're on the stir plate, I guess I'll just film the end of this video. Okay guys. So here we are making up the starter wort. I don't know how well you can see, I've got them a little bit of foil there. Star San sprayed in it. Cup of tea. And what I normally do is I've got a 2 litre flask here. I normally have a litre of water in there to get it boiling and sanitise the flask. And then I like to make my starter wort up in here, and obviously this is double strength because I've got a litre of the water already here. So this is a litre of water and 200 grams of DME. Then what I'll do is get a funnel, I'm just going to turn that hob off. And I'm just going to decant this gradually into the one with just the water, and that's going to give me approximately 2 litres of the right stuff. You see that going in nicely there. The reason I do it with a little jug first is just because it's so blooming difficult if we tip in a saucepan to get the whole lot in there, even with a funnel, in one go. So it's a lot easier to do it with a slightly emptier pan and just decant some of it with a jug like this. And these little barista jugs, they're designed for frothing, steaming milk with a coffee machine. They're great because they're stainless steel, so easy to keep nice and sanitary. So we're just going to pour the last bit into here. And then it's going to go in here. So now, funnel away. We're off the boil, but not far off the boil. It's got a little spillage here, but I'll just wipe it quickly. I'm going to make sure this boils again. What's the towel? Sorry guys. I want to make sure this comes back to the boil. In the meantime, I'm just going to do the quick bit of washing up that's over there, and then once it's boiled for a minute or two, I am going to go straight into a sink of cold water, and when it gets down to about room temperature, somewhere near room temperature, I'm going to pitch the yeast and put it on the stir plate and spin it. So we'll come back when that happens. Okay, it's a few minutes later, maybe half an hour. This has been chilling in my kitchen sink, and it's down to what I'm professionally judging as the correct temperature. So this is my stir plate. It's rudimentary in Heath Robinson to say the least, but it works. So let's just pick the stir bar up with the magnets on there. So let's just bring it out from under the cabinet. We'll just turn it on to make sure it's going. Yep, I don't know if you can see there's some activity in there, but there is something going on. We're just starting to see the top bubbles on the top form a vortex now. So on temperature, we all know that temperature is pretty critical when we're fermenting beer, but when we're fermenting a starter, in order to just create more yeast essentially, certainly low temperatures are quite important because you don't want your yeast to go to sleep if the temperature is too low, but higher temperatures are not necessarily bad. In fact, higher temperatures give you a higher growth rate, which I think it does actually, because I have read the yeast book. I think it's not necessarily a bad thing. So I'm not particularly anal about measuring the temperature of my starter work when it comes out of the sink like that. I just kind of go by the temperature on the side of the glass here, and that, to me, I would describe that as tepid, or just kind of body heat, kind of a bit less maybe. So I'm guessing it's kind of mid to high 20s, something like that, which would be too high in a beer, of course. But when we're doing the starter, I think we're okay. So got a pair of sanitised scissors. I've got my excuse me. I've got my sachet of yeast from the good people of White Labs, and I think we're just going to go for it. Now the challenge with these things, when they were the bottle blanks, was always to get it all in. not easy. Especially because WLP002 is one of these chunky yeasts that really flocks. So getting the whole out of this package, just not particularly well suited to the job, I suppose, the package. So what have we got? There's still some to come. So I want to try and get the most of it I can out, you know. Now, if I was really anal, I reckon I could rinse this out with, you know, boiled water that I'd then cooled, but it's late at night and I'm not anal. So that's good enough for me. So if there was 100 billion cells in there, I reckon I probably got 98 billion, 99 billion. I'm just going to switch it off for a moment because one of the other things that happened is I've got loads on the side of the glass. So I'm just going to try and do a bit of careful swishing. Just try and take that off the side of the flask. Like this. It's not the easiest job in the world, I tell you. Okay, I nearly lost a bit then, but that was that's probably as good as I'm going to get it, so that's going to go under there. Let's just check that's going around. And this will stay here for a day, 2 days, something like that. The WLP 002 is quite good in terms of its behaviour. It flocks out into big chunks when it's fermented out, so you can always know when it starts done or getting towards being done. The only problem that causes is when you're decanting your kind of small sample to put back in the fridge for next time, you've kind of got to try and get these things in solution, these big flocks of yeast, and get, you know, an even rate in your jar as into your beer. So what I'll do with this is ferment it out. I'll save a sample in the fridge, as I've been saying, and the rest of it I'll put into a sanitised pop bottle, plastic PET bottle, in the door of the fridge. It'll stay there for at least a day, maybe more, depends when I brew. And I will let this flock out, and what will end up is a clear starter beer on top and the yeast right at the bottom, and that will enable me on brew day to pour off the spent wort and just pitch only the yeast into my finished beer. Then that way we don't have to have the stale starter wort in the beer with our nice fresh, freshly boiled and chilled wort. So I think that's that. We'll maybe when I get up in the morning, I'll film a quick segment on my phone if this is fermenting by then, but we'll see. Alright, cheerio. Okay guys, it's the next morning. What are we at? So it's still pretty early. It's only 7 or 8 hours since we did the starter. I've got some breakfast going here, and you can see here we've got the starter. We've got active fermentation happening. I can see bubbles rising on the side of the flask up to create that little bit of froth around the edge, and every so often it's kind of frothing up and giving a little cap, little head on there as well. So starter's well underway and everything's going well. Should be ready to be fermented out in I'm guessing around 24 hours, perhaps a little bit more. Alright guys, cheers. So, new camera angle, but also it's only, what is it, 22 hours, 23 hours maybe at a push since I put this starter on. And actually, I'm just going to bring you closer so you can have a good look. As I said, the WLP002 does go kind of flocky and chunky in that way. Once all the sugar is consumed and the yeast naturally flock together. So what I'm going to do is transfer this now. So what I've got is a clean jar, and I've boiled this for probably about 10 minutes just in plain water. Taken it out and stuck the lid on there, as you can see. So it's pretty clean. Down here I've got a 2 litre pop bottle which has been in starter sand for several hours, with the funnel as well, so that should be fairly well sanitised as well. So I'm going to take this off and attempt to decant it, which is not always easy with WRP 002, and hopefully I'll be able to talk you through that. Right. Sorry, I'm just preparing magnets. Right, I've got some magnets and I'll just use these to bring the stir bar out first of all. So I'm just going to move this stir plate out of the way for a second. Now, should be able to grab a hold of this stir bar and drag it up like this. Being very careful not to touch anything inside. So the stir bar's out. Quick tea. So we've got 2 vessels here for our yeast. We've also got a sanitised funnel. Just going to give the top of this a squirt, just in case anything's settled on there. And what we're going to try and do now is get that vortex going again, so the kind of all the flocks are nicely in suspension like it was when it was on the stir plate, and that's easier said than done. And then we'll pour some of it in here, like so. So now I've got this first one done, it's a little bit easier. So we're going to get it up into suspension like this, and then pour the jar full like so. Put the top back on tight. We may need to vent that in the fridge after a couple of days. But with WRP 002 it doesn't have to stick to the bottom. And I've kind of got to be a bit careful because I don't want this foam to come squirting out the top. Because that would be unsanitary. Well, I've got a little bit. Put that over there. Okay. In there for a clean. A lid, of course, which is sanitizer. Give that a good spray. Clean up. Right. So now, I'm writing, I'm going to stick this onto the jar with a rubber band, and that gives me the yeast strain and of course the date which I'm harvesting it, which is today. And that is the date that I will use as the production date, if you like, next time I do my Homebrew Dad spreadsheet. So important to keep that date and that piece of data. In terms of number of cells, this is approximately a quarter of what was in the flask. So I think there was about 373. I can't remember how many million there were. So I'll probably go back to the spreadsheet and just work that out and put an estimated cell count on there as well. It's likely to be around 80 billion cells in here. So then we can use the 80 billion cells plus the harvesting date as the data that we put into the Homebrew Dad spreadsheet. This is going to go in the fridge, and that's where it will live. I wouldn't keep it for more than a couple of months without reculturing it and using it. And after not very much time, in fact, with this yeast strain, you can see the yeast are already settled at the bottom. Hello, it's dripping there. You can see that the yeast is already settled at the bottom. And in fact, this will be perfectly clear by the time we come to harvest it and reculture. So this can then be just poured off, and the yeast in the bottom there can be harvested. So that's about it. Cheers guys, happy Homebrew Wednesday.